Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Knit a Spell. We have a guest, Katie.
We sure do.
Raven Digitalis is the author of the Empath's Oracle, the Everyday Empath, Esoteric Empathy, Shadow Magick Compendium, Planetary Spells and Rituals, and Goth Craft, all from Llewellyn Worldwide.
Light from Lantern presents Knit a Spell. I'm magical maker, Katie Rempe.
And I'm the maker of magic, James Devine.
Join us as we stitch together the symbiotic relationship between crafting
and the craft. Raven has been a witch since 1999, a priest since 2003, a Freemason since 2012, and an empath since the day he was born. Today, we are specifically focusing on your newest project, the Empath's Oracle, along with artist Konstantin Bax.
That's right.
Welcome to Knit a Spell, Raven Digitalis.
Hello. So nice to be here, you guys. Thanks for having me on.
I'm so glad you're here.
And I love you guys' energy, and especially, being in Seattle, I know that a lot of people just are down in the dumps most of the time. So it's really nice to see vibrant Seattle folk.
You're catching us at the right time of year. I have been so excited because I have had this copy of the deck for a few weeks at this point. And one in particular keeps popping out at me every time I open it.
Which one's that?
If we want to just pop right into it, we might as well just.
It's up to you. You're the host.
There you go. Of course, the final one in the deck, right? Bonding with the rhythm of life.
Bonding with the rhythm of life. That was the first card that I pulled also after a thorough shuffle.
There you go.
Yep.
That's so funny. It seems like anytime, even if I'm just like shuffle and then I kind of walk away, do whatever, I'm like, oh, I wonder what's on the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's always this one.
Yeah. Well, I hope that card is teaching you well. And it actually, you're saying that reminds me that I crafted the deck in such a way so that when people open the box, the first card they see is called Establishing Emotional Boundaries. And I think that's the most important lesson for an empath. It's like, that's where it all starts. And then the last one, Bonding with the Rhythm of Life. It's felt like a good sandwich.
I agree. Yes.
So, Raven, your last three, works that were published with Llewellyn all center around empathy in some way, including your most recent. So, and I see that, I see Georgian Witchcraft, which I think is like a more traditional, British traditional witch Wicca.
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, that's right.
And I see Freemasonry. I see some very sort of formalized, structured, ritualized type of practices. And then I see, empathy, empath. I see that, and I read that as very like the opposite of very structured witchcraft. And it seems to be very much, white pill or black pill type of feeling to me, if you will. That's maybe an inside thing to many of our listeners. But I guess I want to start with, how did your journey into magic and the esoteric start?
Well, born and raised in Missoula, Montana. Lovely place. And
Montucky, some of my friends call it.
Montucky, I know. Yeah, Montucky. Luckily, Missoula was always the liberal haven of the state, so much more like the Pacific Northwest in vibration. But weather-wise, pretty harsh. I moved out here to Kauai, Hawaii, 2.5 years ago, right before the pandemic lockdown began. Everything synchronized to get me over here, so I just had to follow that. Very, very difficult, challenging move in the sense of life lessons, emotionally challenging, because I had faced so much burnout in Missoula with my healthcare job there, and then also with the nonprofit multicultural temple that I was cooperating there, and just really the universe said, it's time for a change right now. And I had to listen, and everything synchronized and made it happen. So basically, my introduction into the craft was as a teenager, around 16, when a schoolmate introduced me to just general eclectic Wicca. And then, of course, all the films that we all love, Practical Magic and The Craft and Charmed, and just, journeyed from there to group work, solitary work, lots of studies, and eventually a mushroom journey told me to become an author about 22 years old.
Well, that is interesting. So then when did empathy come in? Like, when did you learn the term to put into what you were likely feeling this whole time?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was first introduced to the esoteric in the form of witchcraft and Wicca. And at that time, I didn't know what an empath was or what that meant. I just knew what a psychic was or a medium. I remember very clearly one day in high school, and, I talk about it in my Esoteric Empathy book, which was my first one, and it's my baby. It's my best book. And that one's designed for witches and pagans and occultists, and people like us, our people. Because I have an empathic anecdote at the beginning of each chapter in there. And I believe the first chapter opens with what I'm about to say, which is there was just one day in high school where I just couldn't take it. Like, there was so much. I was overwhelmed with energy, absorbing the emotions from all these different people. And I didn't realize that was happening. I thought I was going crazy, or I had been drugged or something, not in a good way. And so I just cut class, and thankfully a spiritual elder lived blocks away. And so I walked to her house, and she was there, and she's like, "Oh, honey, you're an empath." And I said, "What the heck is that?" So she told me, and it made total sense. We did a cleansing, and then, just began to learn how to work with that skill. Gift, not a curse, even though it feels that way sometimes. And, everybody is empathic in different degrees, to different degrees. And same with being psychic or medium, all these things, clairvoyant. We're all everything. We just have different degrees and levels of power. We could call them powers to sound special.
And so then how did the creation of that come into a deck specifically? This Oracle deck is so stunning, and with the artists and everything, it's really just a playground for the mind, and every card I've really enjoyed just gazing into each one.
I'm just honored by this deck. So the Empath's Oracle is, like Jim mentioned, the third in the trilogy of my empathy projects with Llewellyn. And like he said, I began with writing about darker subjects, Goth craft and shadow magic. And my shadow magic book is going to be re-released, revised, expanded very soon. I'll talk about that later. But yeah, like I said, it began with Esoteric Empathy, and that took 6 years to write and get just right. Super perfectionist with that. And it is more than I could have ever hoped. And then the next book was the Everyday Empath, which is written for everybody from any background. It's a smaller one, and it's very accessible, not just for witches and pagans and things like that. It's for everyone. And then that got translated into Spanish, an audiobook. It was really neat. And then finally, it has concluded now with the Empath's Oracle deck. When I first started writing Esoteric Empathy, midway through, I was at a psychic fair where I was a reader, because I used to do that in Montana at a metaphysical shop. And I traded a reading with No Tools psychic there. And I said, "So how is this Esoteric Empathy book going to be received? How's this going to go? Am I doing it right?" She's like, "Oh, honey, it's going to be a trilogy." And I said, "Oh, honey, no way."
Oh, don't say that. That's like a guarantee.
And then it was, and now it is. So, but it's great. It's an honor. And I am just so honored to work with Konstantin Bax with this deck. And it's my first ever deck, and everybody wants my deck, and it's such an honor.
Beautiful deck.
So speaking of the artist, so the artwork is so, speaking of a mushroom journey, the artwork is a trip. It is each card. I mean, I'm looking at the images, and even on the cover, like the box, I think that's what's so cool is you can just look at the image on the cover of the box. I think it's that image actually, or one of them. I mean, the image of the face, and just you can dive in, and there's like images within images, and I see like ocean waves or corals or moons. They almost have, you would imagine, like there's a luminous quality to them. It's absolutely stunning art.
They really move.
It's shockingly cool. What was it like working with the artist? Did you have a lot of direction on them, or did the artist really take off and just do their own thing?
It was great. It was, how things synchronize when they're meant to be. Even for occulty people like us, we're still shocked when we think how well things can synchronize. And this is the same thing. So basically all of the card titles came to me, all 40 card titles, and I knew it's like what I always reference, Tori Amos, my number one artist of all time. She's the muse of my life. So, just like she explains, and like many artists explain, there's this force, and this etheric force, and it wants to come down, it taps you on the shoulder, and then it wants to be expressed in the physical form in some way. And so this is how the cards came to me, and I could see in my mind's eye, relatively how they would look. And so all I did was look up modern abstract psychedelic artists, and Konstantin's work just stood out, and I immediately contacted him, and he responded with a yes, I've always wanted to do a deck and make some cards and have my work in that way. And it was just incredible. And his work is, it's all acrylic. Nothing in these cards are digitally altered. It's all acrylic. And I don't know.
I thought for sure it was computer. I thought for sure it was digital. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know. It's like a wild mind trip.
You're telling me that there are originals of these pieces in acrylic that exist somewhere?
Big ones.
Oh, right.
Shut up.
It's incredible. Yeah. And these cards are the tip of the iceberg of his work. So for listeners and viewers, if you look up Konstantin Bax with a K, or you can look up Empath's Oracle, then you can see his name, and then you can look up his Instagram and his formal website and just see the scope of his work. Because with this deck, these are specifically faces and silhouettes, and they're very diverse. And the reason that we crafted it this way is so that people who are utilizing the deck can step into them and see themselves in the cards, no matter who they are. Sure enough, like when I gave him the card titles, he had images that just seamlessly matched with the theme. I think he only did 3 or 4 originals for the deck, and the rest were already pre-created that he's done over time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
When it's meant to be, it's meant to be, huh? Yeah. Oh, you mean this one that you were picturing in your head that's already done?
Yeah, right.
I was really moved by realizing empathy as parentheses are evolution, and this idea of empathy as evolution, empathy as revolution. And I thought that was a really interesting idea, that empathy as evolution, empathy as revolution, that really had me spinning. And the card itself kind of has a swirl with a bird in the center. The person seems to be in meditation. It's got like maybe a very abstract fish, but definitely sort of a hummingbird in the center, maybe one of those spiral shells, I forget what they're called, sort of image on it. I don't know why that hits me or that sticks with me, but is there a reflection on picking out a card?
Everybody vibrates with different cards at different times, I think, and that even stands true with tarot, traditional tarot. And with this pack of cards, I also do have the same thing. Something will, because this isn't like I'm only partially credit. I give myself only partial credit to the Empath's Oracle, not only because of Konstantin's work, but because of the work with, editors, publicists, and designers, and factory workers, all these things, printers. And so it's like a lot like the Lover's card in the Thoth Tarot. It's like creating a third, creating a baby, my baby.
Yes.
And so now it's birth to the world, and I definitely had a bit of a, what do they call it, postpartum depression.
Oh, that's a thing. Yes, yeah. When you finish your project and you're depressed.
And it's birth, yeah.
I used to get that when I would finish books all the time.
Yeah, right. But that card, yeah, I really like that card too. Not just for the imagery, but like you said, empathy as evolution and revolution simultaneously. Well, empathy is revolutionary in the fact that, well, by the way, I think that Wicca and witchcraft traditions need to emphasize empathy more than they do. But anyway, that's the Hindu and Buddhist in me speaking. But yeah, it's empathy is revolutionary because that changes the world. It brings us all together. It's the true oneness. We are all connected, interconnected, and if we can separate this idea of I am totally separate from everything else, which is illusion, that's Maya, that's false, and step into the reality of empathy, which is that we are everything and deeply interconnected, and that's reality. Like, that's physics, it's actual reality, and metaphysics. So it's very revolutionary that way. And then when it comes to evolution, in my studies of empathy, it was really neat to see modern scientific studies about empathy, affirming it as an evolutionary force, just as important as biological evolution, because how else will a species survive and thrive if they don't have empathy and compassion among one another? It was, again, literally reality, scientific evolutionary theory that empathy is that binding force that propels species, and there it is. And yeah, that helped create that card, and I go into it more in the accompanying mini book that comes with it. And
did you say the mini book?
the mini book, yes.
Well, to you, I suppose it's a mini book. To us, it's fairly a large book that would come. Right. Beautiful. Yeah, well, much like you say in that last card, we've kind of divorced ourselves from nature, and that has had its effect noticeably. Well, wonderful. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll dive into the, quote, little book and all of its wonderful details. All right, we'll be right back. Exciting news, listeners. Knit a Spell is coming to Patreon this summer. Our fan club will help you gain access to advance notice to our monthly topics and guests,
episode outtakes,
voter power for future guests and episode topics,
private community to connect with other fans. That's my favorite.
Exclusive giveaways and promotions, and coming soon, we will be adding a special segment to Knit a Spell, which will be a Q&A segment with your questions. Patreon members will be exclusively answered for their questions, so we hope you'll join us.
Join us.
And you'll be doing this all while supporting one of your favorite podcasts, wrapped up in our gratitude. To learn more, sign up for our newsletter at knitaspell.com.
Have you ever wanted to be a professional palm reader or add palm reading to your existing practice? Coming this summer, I will be taking applications for my 6-month online group apprenticeship program, the Divine Hand Mastership Program. I will have a limited number of individuals that will have the opportunity to study the Divine Hand method of palmistry with me. You can sign up to learn more about this exclusive opportunity at thedivinehand.com/mastership.
And we're back. Let's now dive into the details of your, quote, little book that comes with the oracle cards. It is a wealth of information that I personally really enjoyed reflecting on, because there's many aspects of how you can sort of interpret the card. And then you have yours that are also very helpful to fill in the gaps for people. So I'm curious, after you've written so many like big books, what was different about writing this kind of a guide instead?
It's almost like an alchemical process where of refining, where esoteric empathy, 100,000 words, and then next was 50,000 word everyday empath, and now 20,000 word exploring the empath's oracle. So like it's like an alchemical process. Of start with the big deep stuff, refine it down, more digestible format, and then third process, now it's that information is compact, not only into cards, but into just a little book. I call it the little book, the mini book, because to me that was a mini book. Really interesting that basically with each card description, each card description was like a big block of information. It was just too much, and then the editor said, okay, you'll need to break it down so each card has its parts, so even smaller components. So that was a bit challenging, but it was definitely worth it. So now when you pull a card, you can look at all these different categories within the book. So for this one that I turned to, releasing emotional weight. So it begins with, like they all do, essential themes. And Barbara, my acquisitions editor, suggested this format, and it really worked. So essential themes, a few bullet points, and then after that, imagery, like imagery of the cards. And Konstantin mostly wrote those, and I just edited those. And then it goes into deeper meanings and then suggestions for action. So people really like this format, and I'm really happy with it. Yeah.
Yes, it makes it very digestible and, like you said, kind of action oriented, which as an empath is not always easy to do. But what about sitting and dwelling, though?
Yeah.
Come on.
And it's funny you said that, because I purposefully made sure that each card, or I was spiritually told or whatnot, that each card would begin with something active, an active title, releasing, creating, mentalizing, welcoming, offering, creating, healing, utilizing, crafting, all these things.
Very clever.
Yeah. So it really came together like that. And I'm very happy with it.
And which section became your favorite out of all of those in the end? I mean, not like the card per se, but like where you're like, oh, like this part, I really enjoyed that there's an action taking part for people, or that, there's, this sort of part that reoccurs through it.
Yeah, I think the action part, like you said, is a great focus, is one of my favorites, because then it kind of goes a little deeper. Then it's not like this means this. Then it's like, okay, you can try this. And like, you can try fasting from technology. You can try fasting from food in this way. You can try fasting from speaking. Or, that's just one example of a card. Taking a vow is where those action steps come in. But yeah, I think that is like you intuited is one of my favorite aspects, because then it's like, yeah, here's the information, and now activate it. Do it, you guys. Listen to the cards.
It's the meat.
And come up with your own interpretations and make it real.
How do you, as the creator of the deck, utilize the cards? Like, do you give readings to people? Do you use it for yourself?
It's July 13th. And so far, I've only pulled 3 cards for myself. That's it.
Oh, interesting.
Because the way that it works, I didn't know how I would work with the deck myself, even as a co-creator. It just turned out that I need to. It just tells me, like, I'll draw. I'll know when I need to draw a card, and then I'll really have to think about it, get into it, actualize it, and once I've learned from that, then I can move on. And then for other people, like, because I've been reading tarot professionally for 15 or 16 years, and I do readings regularly every week. So if anybody listening or watching would like a reading, you're welcome to contact me. Just go to ravendigitalis.com, or I'm on social media stuff, and we can set up a reading, an official one. They last about an hour, and I use the Thoth deck, the Torch deck. And then what I do now that the Empath's Oracle has come out, I conclude each reading with a single card draw, like as a wrap up for each client, which is really fun. And I shuffle it and I say, okay, give me a number between 1 and 40. Boom, 16. Okay, it's number 16. Boom, 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 16. There it is.
Ooh, that's fun. What's your shuffle style?
I will show you.
Ooh.
So I have big old hands, so I take them.
Handy.
I take them, yeah, handy.
I didn't mean it.
So because I have big hands, I take them the long way, and then just,
Yes.
Riffle.
And just try to do regular shuffle, and then I'll always do the bridge, and then cut a few times, and focus, and see what comes.
Let's pull a card for everybody for the week. And so this is for everyone listening. What do you need to know about accessing your own empath nature this week?
We have got celebrating the world's diversity.
The timing.
Celebrating the world's diversity. Let's look at that image real close for a minute. Just stare into that image. What do we have there, Raven? You can look at it yourself and describe it a little bit. Describe it for people who are listening.
Well, I think the best way to describe it would be to read from the mini book.
Great.
Because Konstantin, the artist, mostly contributed to that section of each card. Yeah, you can see what it is like an etheric bird and the face of a person, man, woman, non-binary, who knows, human, maybe. So imagery, the explosion of color in this image illustrates the diversity and joy of life. As a symbol of personal freedom, the bird, it is a bird, depicted in this card's art is especially prominent. Empaths from all walks of life desire for every living being to be free from suffering. We must start with ourselves while we examine our own contributions to freedom or suffering for other beings throughout our daily choices. Love it.
How topical.
Very cool.
Yeah, and the essential themes are looking outside ourselves. Oh, and these are all active words also. Looking, studying, celebrating, made that very consistent. So looking outside of ourselves in order to avoid emotional overload. Studying different cultures, identities, religions, and ways of life. And celebrating our own unique contributions to the world's diversity. So yeah, that's a great one. I love that card. And I love all the cards. But and then of course in the book it goes into deeper meanings for that and suggestions for action. So
yeah, what's an action? Let's give us, if you skim through that, what is one action that you'd suggest?
Let's jump to the
just
action
an excerpt.
That card. Yeah, and again, the card is celebrating the world's diversity. So it's pretty short, actually. This card encourages you to explore the world beyond yourself. At this time in human history, it has never been easier. Documentary films are an excellent place to explore the world, as are numerous books, articles, and personal experiences gained by traveling the globe. Empaths have an innate ability to approach other types of people and cultures because we tend to see similarities before we see differences. We are all the same in essence. The culture and experiences in which we were born naturally aid in forming our identities and egos. By branching outside of ourselves, we can see how others live, think, operate, and celebrate. Empaths are quick to break barriers of division because our focus is on similarities rather than differences. What a great blessing.
So cool.
Focusing on similarities other than differences. Yes, it's all just a mind reset. So Raven, when you're not writing books or co-creating decks or, being an amazing empath, what do you do to be creative as an outlet?
Yeah, writing is really my creative outlet. And then I get so much joy from reading cards for people because, and doing Reiki energy work, things like that. which is very easy to do here in Hawaii because, like, in person, if I do in-person ones, because just the prana, the mana here is just, the Shakti is just incredible, but it's easy to tap into. But I think writing is really, really my thing. And I guess fashion and makeup kind of used to be more of my thing, but still can be fun now and then.
So what about writing specifically really calls to you?
Again, it's about helping people and to the best of my ability. And with every project, it's also a learning experience for myself. It's very mutual. I can write and research something and create something and learn all these new things and then transmit that. So I'm teaching myself at the same time as teaching other people. And that's really fun. I just love that, empathically, that reciprocity. And I still also work in healthcare. I do one-on-one healthcare work. And again, helping others in their lives, trying not to get burnt out in the process. And actually here in Hawaii, I'm doing one-on-one work with folks rather than a group home with a bunch of individuals, which is less pressure and allows for more personal freedom and communication and assisting others with goals and things like that.
Okay, Raven, where can everybody find you?
I'll tell you.
Oh,
I know where people can go.
Yes.
People can go to ravendigitalis.com. And you know why you want to go there? Because it's a list, a beautiful gothy website with all of your books and links to the services you provide. Reiki services, reading, spiritual counseling, everything that you want from Raven, you can get at ravendigitalis.com. How do you spell Raven Digitalis? You don't have to worry about it because you can go to our show notes. We are going to link to Raven and all of Raven's stuff like crazy.
And I can't wait to visit the Pacific Northwest because
Raven Digitalis will be in Seattle live doing a book signing at the beginning of September at Edge of the Circle Books. So keep your eye out if you're if you're proximal to Seattle, you will want to be there and meet Raven and get your book signed or your Oracle deck signed or just be touched by this amazing human.
Thank you.
If he'll touch you.
Or hug.
If you're lucky.
Hug. I am a huge fan of hugs. So if anybody wants hugs and more hugs.
He did say he was a Leo, so you know.
Yeah. Everyone, hugs for you, hug for everybody.
Do you have Instagram and Facebook?
Yep, I've got facebook.com/ravendigitalis, instagram.com/ravendigitalis, lowercase one word.
Well, we'll make sure to put it all in our notes so that it's easy for everyone to pop over.
Put all the kind into kind.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you so much for coming on our show. Really appreciate it. We could just dive in forever.
I know. I'm so happy to be here. And I'd love to come back at some point. And, I promise I'd mention my next forthcoming book. So maybe.
Wait, what? Secret? Dun-dun-dun-dun. Only here?
It's not. Yep. Only here. No, not only here, but so I'll spill it. I was approached by Crossed Crow Press, like Crossroads and Crow, new press in Chicago, run by the lovely Malloway brothers. And that's also the name of their occult shop.
Oh, that occult shop in Chicago is amazing. I love that occult shop.
Okay,
great.
Yes. Everyone should go there.
Yeah, and in September, I'll be at Chicagoland Pagan Pride also, and at Malloway Brothers, and in Minneapolis, and in Montana, as well as Seattle and Tacoma. If y'all live around there, I'll be posting my tour schedule sometime soon. So the rights reverted to me from Llewellyn for Shadow Magick Compendium, which was my second book.
Ooh.
And I knitted a spell, and I said to the universe, I don't want this to gather virtual dust. I actually like this book, but I'm not going to reprint Gothcraft because that's like a time capsule. I'll never reprint that. But I said, I like Shadow Magick Compendium. I don't want it to gather virtual dust, so show me a way if it's meant to be. Okay, thanks, bye. And then a month later, these guys are like, can we reprint Shadow Magic Compendium? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so it's revised, expanded, 3 times better than the original version of Shadow Magic Compendium, except now it's called a Witch's Shadow Magic Compendium. And there's going to be a limited edition hardcover run, which I've never had. So cool. And then the regular print version, which has gorgeous art done by Wick Malloway on the cover. It's Lady Luna. It's a very lunar Esoteric book. So it's going to just be beautiful. And I had a very harsh but genius editor for the book. So that was challenging.
They're the best.
Yeah.
Deep breaths. Low PTSD, but it's fine. No, it turned out really well, and I'm so excited about it. And so that'll be out in August, and so my September book tour will be promoting that and the Empath's Oracle and my other 2 empathy books.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So exciting.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Well, those kind of editors, it's like editor CrossFit. You know it's good for you, but you hate it.
Yeah. It's like that exercise thing. Sounds
like
awful.
Editor Hatchet. Yeah. No. It was good.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see you in September.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll share more if we end up doing like a thing local to there or something. We'll make sure everyone's informed. So yay.
Please do. Thanks so much for having me on. It's just a pleasure. You're both just radiant and wonderful and witchy and super special. And I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing.
Oh,
you do.
Oh, we really appreciate you coming on. Yeah.
Great.
All right. Well,
Awesome.
We will look forward to having you on again. Thank you for joining us and Knit a Spell. And thank you, everyone listening, for tuning in. Until next week.
Yes.
Farewell, everybody. And we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Namaste. Blessed be.
Thanks for
listening.
If you enjoyed the show, consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes and Spotify, or following Knit a Spell on Instagram.
You can also subscribe to the Light from Lantern YouTube channel to enjoy full episodes of Knit a Spell and see our happy faces.
You can also learn more about readings, classes, and events going on with your favorite maker of magic, James Devine, by visiting thedivinehand.com and subscribing to his newsletter. Then follow Jim's fun and interactive Instagram account at DivineHandJim.
Keep up with Katie, the magical maker, by subscribing to her newsletter at lightfromlantern.com. You'll even receive a free knitting pattern as a thank you gift. Then follow Katie on Instagram at lightfromlantern for even more magical making tips. See you next week.